My home started with a scruffy patch of land, a spot no one else wanted, except me. But that was just the beginning. Of course, I had to get a house and whatever went with the house. And then I got Brekkie, my dog. Of all the bits and pieces that made this place my home, perhaps the most dramatic was getting Brekkie. Today, I'm going to share how Brekkie and I found each other, and together made this space a little home for both of us. I'll explain a little bit about his breed, why I picked him, and what happened next. Stick around, because this isn't just a story about a dog. It's about that moment, that space in time, when a place starts to feel like a home. And it took both of us. Hi there, I'm Judith, and I started this channel because I own a little house and I love to talk about it. And today, about my dog Brekie. Let me get started. Knowing me, I'll get going talking about Brekie and I'll forget to ask you to subscribe. So I'm doing that right now. If you could hit that subscribe button, it really helps me out. And those likes, Brekie and I both enjoy those. So a little click there, it's nice. In my last story, I talked about how I found this lot. A very ugly duckling kind of lot, one that no one liked. Actually, no one knew it was here really. And it became a swan for me. Just a magical bit of my universe. I got a house, and then I got a deck, and I got a fence. I had to have a fence. Why? I wanted a dog. I'd wanted a dog for years. I had a dog years ago, a dog that I absolutely adored, a Bichon Frise, and I hadn't been able to bring myself to getting another dog yet. Years. I wasn't living in the right kind of situation, and to tell you the truth, I didn't know what I'd want. But yes, I got the lot, I got a house, I got a deck, and I got a fence. I was ready for a dog. I mean, why else would I need a fence? But I had no idea what kind of a dog I wanted. None. I knew what I didn't want, but really, I'd been mulling this over for years by this time. But for years, I had been transitory. It had been hard to situate my needs in my life and have room for another creature in my day. I was past that stage now. I was settled into a house and I was beginning to have a very different life that felt spacious to me. But the doggy part, what I wanted, I couldn't quite put my finger on. I just couldn't quite get it. It wasn't so much indecision, although there was that. It was more that I couldn't quite figure out what I needed and how I wanted a dog to intersect with my life. I did decide very early on that I'd be unwilling to take a rescue dog. I know this is going to disappoint many of you. Many of you have rescue dogs in very happy homes. But here was my fear. I was afraid that I could end up with a traumatized dog from whatever situation happened that resulted in the rescue. And I didn't think I had the capacity to take care of a creature that had been extremely traumatized. That would have been above my limit. So I had already determined I wouldn't go in that direction. So how about a lapdog? Well, I'd be okay with that. It'd be nice to have someone close and around, sure. A working dog? I didn't think I needed a service dog, although it'd be kind of nice to be able to take a dog everywhere that dogs aren't allowed. But as for a working dog, in terms of like a hunting dog, that wasn't my thing at all. I didn't want a dog that would be my tool, not in the caretaking sense, but in the sense of doing something out there for me. How about an accessory kind of dog? You know, like those movie stars do? I don't think creatures are accessories, and I think that's a mean thing to do, to be blunt. I don't see them as fancy handbags, tiaras, or pearl necklaces with diamond medallions. Not my thing at all. No way was I going to make a creature an accessory to me. Intelligent? Oh yeah. In this household, absolutely. Size? Well, I didn't want a Chihuahua. I thought 20 pounds, 30 pounds, I'd be okay. In there somewhere. I would want to take the dog hiking. I don't go very far anymore, but it'd be nice to have a dog that could handle 3 miles, not a dachshund. Color? I didn't give a rip. but the dog had to be non-shedding and hypoallergenic. This house, by the way, the interior, it's hypoallergenic. And I was all for it. The air feels so good in here. There's no way I would have wanted a dog to disrupt that. And he doesn't. How did all that work out? I needed a dog to give me comfort and to calm me down a bit. I looked up breeds. I had a couple in mind, but I'd heard the most positives from folks who had Labradoodles. So I got all into Labradoodles. And I more or less planned on having one of those. It was during COVID, though, and it was going to take a lot of calls because everyone in the universe wanted a Labradoodle. So I researched, called, and what was the outcome of that? Well, first I tried in-state. They weren't taking any more folks on their waiting list. Maybe in a year, they'd have more openings. Okay, so I went a little wider. Could I do New York? Yeah. Connecticut? Sure. New Jersey? Oh, maybe. Half a day's drive. Massachusetts? Definitely. Maine? Yeah, I could turn that into a whole trip. I called all over. And for those who were accepting new applications, this was the kind of thing I got. Yes, we'd be happy to put you on the list. Maybe a year. Oh, you want it sooner than a year? Well, we could do 9 months. That'll add $1,500 to the bill. How about potty training? Would you be interested in us potty training it? $4,000. And so it went like that, breeder after breeder. And finally, I got to this breeder that sounded all American cozy. There was log cabin in the name. So I call this breeder, and I feel like I'm talking to the Russian mafia. There was the heavy accent, and then the menu of choices. Potty trained, that's $2,000 a week. A brown one, that's an extra $500. Ginger, $1,000. You could do 4 months, and that would be $1,000. 5 months, and it would be $500. Otherwise, it's a year. Size, let me see. If you want under 15 pounds, that costs $800. Between 15 pounds and 30 pounds, those are really popular. That'll be $2,000. It went like that. It was like buying a new car. You tick the features, and then they add it all up. And then they want to pressure you into getting these little extra features, like this treatment and that treatment, and potty training, or a place to stay because you can't pick him up on the scheduled date. Or if you want to choose it yourself, that's extra too. It was crazy. Yeah, it was like choosing the color of a car and then what kind of seats you want. And then how many speakers and a sunroof. Nuts. And yeah, it felt like I was talking to car sales and the Russian mafia. And at that point, I said, no, we're not doing this. I'm not going to have a creature in my house, something that I love, be talked about that way as a bunch of features. And the one thing none of them talked about was temperament. And that was my fear. If you remember, I said a moment ago that I didn't want to take in a traumatized dog. I was very concerned about temperament and how I would adjust to that. None of those breeders spoke about it. But then I was in kind of a fix. I'd made that whole train of decisions focused on a Labradoodle. Should I unravel all of that, or should I go forward somehow? I put my mind to it and I researched. That brought me to the breeders page for Australian Labradoodles. I guess they're kind of the elite mode of Labradoodle. All of them are mixes, right? But evidently the Australian Labradoodles are kind of extra special. So I'm looking at this breed description. It was kind of snooty, to tell you the truth. And this is where its snoot got really magnified. There was a sentence that said, an Australian Labradoodle is not a Cobberdog, as though being a Cobberdog could be the worst thing in the world. Of course, I had no idea what a Cobberdog was, so I had to look it up. Well, what is a Cobberdog? I soon found out. In fact, in 5 minutes, I knew that was going to be my dog. It was perfect. Australian Cobberdog. And what is their primary feature? They're bred for temperament. Aha, stars in my eyes. Perfect. That's what I was looking for, temperament. A lot of them go for therapy dogs. They tend to be mellow and they take care of people. I talked to a couple of breeders, and I think it was the third one. She was delightful, just delightful, and very effective as a business person. Soon, I filled out the application. I was so in it. and then I had to wait until one became available. It took maybe 6 months. It was so exciting. The breeder picked one for me. I paid for it to be brought by their concierge, if that isn't a great retirement job, and picked it up with 12 other folks at a motel near Boston. And that was Brekkie. He wasn't named right away. It took like 3 months for me to get him a good name, but that was Brekkie. Now, I thought I had experience with dogs. It turns out I'd never had experience with a young puppy, and it mattered. And here I was expecting a mellow, caretaking kind of a puppy, bright spark, someone who would sit on my lap in his littleness and be stroked. Not Brekkie. Brekkie was absolutely wild. Wild. He has so much energy. And when he was young, I had to run him around the yard repeatedly just to wear him down. Even the first day, I was so exhausted by it all, I decided I'd have a shower. I just wanted to get cleaned up, just a few moments to myself. Now, you all know about my bathroom. It has a roll-in shower, as in you can walk right in it, no curbs. So I'm there in the shower, and what happens? Brekkie flings open the door. He can do that with this barn door. And he hops in the shower. Hot water and everything. I was screaming, shrieking, talking about traumatizing a dog. Oh, that was our first day, and I was so tired, I just collapsed on the floor and went to sleep right there. Nothing was going to help the situation except for a few hours rest. I mean, I was done. But yeah, Brekkie was a wild creature. He still is. It's just you don't see that part. And at first, I had a very hard time with that kind of energy. There are things I loved about it. He's the most gregarious creature I have ever met. He wants to say hi to everyone. He likes to be stroked 50 times over by one person. He can never get enough of it. He bounces around on his rear legs every time someone new comes into his space. He's just so thrilled to be interacting with people and his universe. He was difficult for me to adjust to, not because he wasn't a lovely dog, he is. But here I'd wanted a calm home, and I was having to chase him around the yard, wear him out, just to have some peace in the house. I was beside myself. I had no idea how to strike a balance between his needs and mine. I loved the look and feel of his liveliness, but that wasn't something I had planned to live with. And it did feel very disruptive. It wasn't for many months, maybe even a year, that we became like two peas in a pod. I don't even know what did it. One day someone came up to me and they said they'd seen us from a distance and we clearly belonged together. I thought, oh really? That's very interesting, because I felt like I was having such a struggle adjusting to him. But then I realized the two of us had kind of rubbed off on each other, that his liveliness had re-sparked something in me that maybe was already there, and in such a way that I was comfortable with it, and maybe even a little bit excited about how I'd become. And somewhere in there, I had switched from catering mostly to his physical needs, food, water, and a good vet, and had begun to pay attention more to his emotional needs. And when I did that, he was more freed up to be caretaking of me. And yeah, we became two peas in a pod. And that's how we built a home together, the two of us. You've heard me talk about juicy magic. When the world brings something really special your way, this is juicy magic for me, my Brekie. Something unusual, fantastic, unexpected, unique and individual. That's the each of us and the combination. And that's our home. We made it together. Now, I know a lot of you viewers have probably experienced the very thing I'm talking about, but it was new to me. Tell us your stories. I know I'd love to read them, and other viewers really appreciate them too. So have at it in the comments. And that's enough from me for now. Don't forget to subscribe and we'll talk soon, all right? See you then.